Hello, everyone, and welcome. It's Dawn and Mona. Hey, Mona.
Hello.
Nice to see you. Hey, Carla in the chat. Oh, Carla's already got her questions fired up. This is great. This is great. Oh my gosh, she's got some great questions. Okay, please allow me to introduce the topic for tonight before we get started because I have a tendency to just like jump right in and think everyone knows what I'm talking about. So, I've actually gotten prepared for tonight and I have a little outline. So before we get started and introduce Mona and what we're doing here, let me just quick tell you what we're doing here. So first of all, we're here to talk about California versus Monica Sementilli. And the case overview are that Monica Sementilli has been charged with count one murder for financial gain and count one also murder by means of lying in wait, which are special circumstances in California. And count two, conspiracy to commit murder. So she's been charged with both of those counts. And the victim is her husband, was her husband, FABIO Sementilli. So the location of this crime and trial is in LA, and it is really one of the most LA trials you can imagine. Don't you think, Mona? It's quite LA. So Fabio was a hairstylist for many celebrities before becoming an executive at Wella. The lead detective now has a popular crime series based on her. And she's a writer for that crime series, which is Mona will tell us more about. And notable trials at this courthouse include Richard Ramirez, you remember him? O.J. Simpson, remember him? Phil Spector, and most recently A$AP Rocky, which was going on while this trial was going on as well. So real quick about this courthouse, because I am interested in architecture and, just kind of for those of us who can't be there, having a visual of what Mona has been able to experience in going to this trial in person. This trial is being held at the Clara Shortridge Falls Criminal Justice Center. It was renamed. It used to just be the Criminal Justice Center in LA. So I looked that up. And Clara Shortridge Falls was born in 1849, died in 1934. She was an American lawyer, the first female lawyer on the West Coast, and the pioneer of the idea of the public defender, which I think is amazing.
That's fascinating.
Did you know that, Mona?
Not until right this second.
Okay. The Criminal Courts building is in downtown LA and was renamed for her in 2002. So, like I said, it used to just be the Criminal Justice Center of LA. So it's now, again, there's her name, Clara Shortridge Falls Criminal Justice Center. This crime was committed in Woodland Hills, which is a suburb of LA. It's not really LA proper. It's a super long trial. It started a month ago. The number of days that we have finished now are 25 days. There have been a lot of breaks, so that's why we haven't finished 30 days or 28. When will it end? So now let me introduce Mona with our first question. When will this trial end?
Judge Cohen frequently makes comments to the jury before it starts and says, I promise you, first he said, I promise you this trial will end by Christmas. And the last time he said that, I promise you this trial will end by Christmas 2026.
Wow.
So
yeah.
He's keeping his humor.
Yeah,
and we did see the A$AP Rocky people. We all went down to the elevators together.
Right.
When we left for lunch the first time we were there.
Fascinating. Did you see I just lost her name, his wife.
I did not see her, but I wasn't really looking. I just
who is also a bigger celebrity.
Rihanna.
Okay. Sorry about that. I just totally just have a lot on my mind today. All right. Well, hey, Mona, you've attended the trial. So let me ask you, what got you interested in this trial in the first place?
I was trying to remember. I am not sure if it was you. That's because you're always telling me, hey, watch this. And, you know, 9 out of 10, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to. But this one, I think either I was paying attention to it or saw it on a smaller channel because I like what that channel picks. So I'll watch sometimes. And then I recalled reading it in a local paper when the crime happened because
Right.
we had some friends very close to that kind of rich valley, nice neighborhoody areas. And
Right.
I turned to my husband and said, doesn't so and so live there like that long ago in
Hmm.
2017 when it was in like the Santa Monica patch or
Hmm.
West Side something? And I was like,
Right.
and it's not though. It's so funny how LA is represented on camera because the valley's the valley, Hollywood's Hollywood, the West Side's it's very vast, and the
Right.
type of people that are in different areas are quite different
Yeah.
socially.
Yeah, exactly. And San Diego's not quite as large as LA, but it's very similar down here. It's really a large landmass. I think 4
Right.
million people total, but all the different counties and all the different beach cities and all the different
Yeah,
inland
just
cities
LA
have a
County
different
itself.
vibe.
LA County itself is gigantic
Right.
with
Exactly.
mountains and valleys and
Mountains and
beaches and
same here. Beach,
super east, east,
valleys,
east.
canyons, mountains.
Right.
We have all these
Yeah,
different
Rihanna,
climates.
okay, Carla.
Yeah.
So, I'm not sure what got me interested, but what kept me interested was remembering reading it in the paper and going, that's really cool to finish one of the true crime trials or cases that I read about offhand instead of seeing it on YouTube, or a
Right.
blurb or something.
Right. I don't think it was me. I think you reminded me. You said, "Yeah, when that happens, I think I want to actually go and attend some of the trials." And I remember when it happened too, because of course it's news. If it's news in LA, it's going to be news in San Diego. So, kind of the same thing. And then I think I just maybe reminded you of it, and I was just thrilled when you said you were actually going to go in person. So, tell
Yeah, it
me if
was like,
I'm.
wait a minute, this is possible because
It's
I would I was somebody recently offered me to stay at their house in Idaho and go see Corey Richins. And I went, "Oh, no." And then I thought about it, and then I went, "Oh, no, I don't wanna do that. Plus, I'll go there, and I won't be able to get in because 'cause it'll be so crazy filled
packed.
with people."
Her
Yeah.
courthouse might be a little bit bigger than the well, Boise wasn't super small, but yeah, there was a packed courthouse for the day those trials. Idaho is beautiful if you haven't been. Oh,
I
not that's
haven't.
Utah. That's Utah. Sorry.
No, isn't it Idaho?
No,
Is
she's
she?
Utah, I think. I think she's in Utah.
Huh. I thought it was Idaho.
So
Yeah.
this is the first time you've attended a trial in person at a courthouse, which is why I kind of want to do that back. Let me just quick show the audience and hey, Carla's got her questions ready. Hey, Carla.
I'm ready.
And for those who are replaying, so I have a picture of the courthouse. Let's see if I can find it. A little bit of about the architecture. Let's see if this is the right one. Let's see. This is a real quick, not a great shot, but this is the
That's
courthouse.
sure what it looks like,
That's
and
what it
there's
looks like.
multiple
Okay.
courthouses down there too.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the architecture is a little,
Prison looking.
yeah, a little ominous looking. And so I have another little, because I wanted to get a little information about the actual architecture and what's the thinking behind it, the design itself. And so I found this cool video from when I looked up the actual architect. So it's a quick video. I'm going to mute the music because I don't know what music this is, but let's just quick show this. And the music is ominous, but I just muted it. So that is the Clara Shortridge. What's her name again? Clara Shortridge I already forgot the third name. Criminal Justice Center.
Rolls right off the tongue.
So, right. So here's what the architect was thinking as how the light changes. And of course, it's always sunlight in almost always in LA. So how the light changes. Now just watch this video because it's kind of interesting. See how as the sun moves, the shadows move. And so I guess that was the reason for this type of choice. This was built in the 1970s, which is kind of not the most exciting architectural period in our history, but that's it. That's it. And you're up on the 9th floor, right? So way up there.
Yeah, and there's 19 floors there.
I bet there's some pretty cool views. I like the view of City Hall because that's City Hall right there, right? That's lit up in
Is that the hall? I think that's the Hall of Justice right across the street.
Okay. And is that what City Hall is, or is that something different?
No, City Hall is somewhere. It's
totally
like,
different. Okay.
Yeah,
the Hall of Justice looks more like
the Hall of Justice is where all the prosecutors' offices are.
Okay, that was my question because I got the impression from what I read about it that the prosecutor's offices were actually housed right in the Shortridge place.
No, they're right across the street.
Okay.
I watched them cross the street together and go back to work. Yeah, I think so too, Carla.
Carla says it looks like a jail. Yeah.
There are prisons and jails and a lot of government buildings in that area, and they all look kind of oppressive in my opinion. Very cementy and little windows, and I don't think there's any windows in that courtroom. It's stuffy and
not like a lot of courtrooms are very pretty and ornate and fancy.
Not this one.
Yeah, it's not like that because it was built in the 70s, right? So,
well, yeah, I have to say the benches aren't as uncomfortable as you would think because they're kind of curvy.
Okay.
So it's not like that 90-degree thing.
Right.
It's a little
like a church pew.
Little butt, low back friendly.
Yeah. So Carla has some questions here I want to get to real quick, but before I do that, what was it like just like walking into that building and then finding the courtroom? What was it like just to experience, this is my first time in a courtroom type of thing?
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm familiar with that building because I was called to be a juror and I had to go to that courtroom and sit in a big giant room all day once, but they don't choose me as a juror. And what was it like going into the courtroom? Like there's a little ante room. Oh, okay. So you walk in this first door and then there's another door and everybody sits in the hallway on benches. And there's a sign that says like for public, but I didn't sit on that bench in case Morella and her son and daughter and somebody else. There's like family members that come sometimes, so I don't want to interfere.
They don't have their own bench?
It just says public, and it's right outside the door, close on that side. And there's multiple courtrooms there, so it's just a long hall of benches.
Oh,
and it's kind of stuffy, and it's not very well kept up. So the jurors sit out on the benches. There are no jury rooms. Before I went to the courthouse, I thought, I always imagine the jury has a special room where they kind of hang out and chat and put their snacks out. They're throughout the hallway, just like sitting there waiting. And then when you go in the courtroom, which they're very relaxed about, I liked going early and watching everybody chat and the whole kind of social thing like any office. The judge doesn't have his robe on. He's hanging out at the clerk's desk. Everybody's chatting. Other lawyers that might not even have anything to do with that come in and, say stuff. And there's a lot of laughter and chatter. It's very, before anything happens. it strikes you as it's interesting because somebody's life is on the line, and it's just like a day at
Right.
work, for the people that work there, which
Right.
that makes sense. But
Right.
then when you walk in, this is especially for Carla for wanting to go. There are here, like, let's do it. Let's do it from where the judge is sitting. So we'll call that the stage. So you're
Okay.
obviously in the audience. So the judge is sitting at the higher part. On stage right is the clerk's desk.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And she loves her job. She's very
Oh,
happy.
I
And
called her twice. She's amazing.
she's so
'Cause I was
nice
looking for
and
some
so
information.
friendly. And it
Yeah.
looks like she has a great relationship with Judge Cohen because they joke
Yes.
around.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so she's on stage right. Then on the wall near her is where Monica comes out and where
Right.
Austin came out. So that's
Right.
the holding area.
Mm-hmm.
And then right closer to the door, we're sort of going catty corner around the room. There's a little place where one or two sheriffs sit, very relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the front, they have the defense big table, and then
Mm-hmm.
they have a table for the prosecution. So the defense table is obviously closer to the sheriff's little area.
Right to the right.
And then there is the female, Blair Burke, is that her name? She sits facing the wall where the jury is. She
The
doesn't sit.
female. The
Yeah,
female. What do you
yeah.
mean? The female.
The female main defense attorney. She
Oh,
sits
okay.
not
Okay.
next to
Okay.
Monica, but at
Yes.
an angle. Then Monica, then whatever attorney they've assigned
Baby
Monica
lawyers.
duty to, they switch around.
The baby
Sometimes
lawyers of the
Levine,
chat assigned the
and
name.
then Levine, and
Uh-huh.
then the lectern, and then
Okay.
actually it's then the prosecution table, and then the female blonde, and then Silverman, and then the lectern is right there. And
Right.
frequently one of the prosecutors will just push it away from their table before it starts.
Huh.
And then behind the defense, there are 3 or 4 other young attorneys.
Sure.
And then behind the
They have a large
prosecution
team.
are 2 detectives.
But
And that's it.
behind the defense,
Yeah, 2 detectives sit there.
maybe their own investigators.
No, they were the ones that arrested Austin.
Oh, okay.
So they took over after
Because
Mitsy Roberts
oftentimes
retired.
the defense will have their own investigators, and they will also be
They
right behind
the,
them.
the law enforcement will whisper to them, but they don't have other attorneys present.
Or investigators.
Right. It's
Okay.
just, but I mean, detectives are investigators, so
Right.
I guess they're doubling. So
Okay. Well,
yeah,
it
so the
doesn't sound
2
like it's
detectives
super
are behind the
large.
prosecutor. Then alongside stage left are all the jurors.
Mhm.
And they sit facing the holding room. And they're
Okay, let me stop you, because when we're watching, I think they might have the video mirrored on Law and Crime, because when we're watching, I'm always trying to see which way they're looking. I do this with every trial I watch.
mhm.
Where's the jury? Because I can tell from, especially with the expert witnesses, when they turn and pause and look at the jury.
That's
But
where
what
they
I
are.
Yeah, but what I've noticed is it's confusing, because I know the setup is the way you say, because I've seen enough of the panned out version of the video, but I think they must have the video mirrored, because when a witness is asked to identify the defendant, Monica Sementilli, they will look the wrong way. It's like that. So it has to be
Oh,
mirrored.
that's interesting. I didn't
Watch it,
notice that.
watch it. And
I
same
will.
with the jury when
But
the
then,
expert witnesses who like to comment to the jury, they're always looking to the what you would think is the right, but they should be looking at the left. So I
they
think
are
it must
looking
be
they are
mirrored.
looking to their left,
Yes,
to the
it must,
jury, and to their
yeah,
right to see Monica
right,
from
right,
where they're
which is
testifying.
right, which is what my brain says, but I maybe I'm wrong. But if you do, I'm sure when you're not there in person, you're actually watching the trial online, right? The live
Mhm.
stream.
Yeah, but they have
So
these close face shots, so
it's great.
and then they start late, and you don't see any motions or when you're there, you can stay in that courtroom when they're having a sidebar or arguing
Sure.
a motion. So
Yes.
I find that odd. But then the jury sits number 1 through 6 at a higher level,
Mm-hmm.
and in front of them 7 through 12.
Mm-hmm.
And then they alternate the alternates. So it's 1 up high, 2 down low, 3 up high,
Oh,
4
they're moving
down
them
low.
around.
Well, they just keep them there. Now there are still 12 jurors and 5 alternates. They only
Okay.
lost 1
Now
person so far.
we're gonna have to come back because I'm definitely gonna want to do verdict watch. And so you did a great diagram of the jury pool and all of that. So when it comes time to verdict watch, I'd like to go over that too.
Okay, I no longer take any notes because I find it much more informative to just sit and
Right.
watch. And what I did the last time was Marty and I weren't sitting next to each other, but we were on the same bench. I
Mhm.
sat as if I were the 7th alternate because it's that
Mhm.
close, the bench, to where
Right.
they're sitting. Because I
Okay.
sort of wanted to feel that kind of observation. But then behind all the chairs I described, there's one long bench, and that
Mhm.
is reserved for law enforcement. Then
Okay.
there's one long bench that public can sit in. However, you
And so
can't
are
be
the
there.
detectives on that bench? Because you
No,
said
they're
the
in
detectives
chairs.
were behind
They're in chairs behind the table.
defense. Okay. Okay.
It's the
Okay,
way the
Carla.
other lawyers.
Yeah, Carla has a good question. If this is interesting. If the judge needs to excuse the jury for,
Yes,
let's
they
say,
get set. Yes.
to the
Yes.
hall, they get sent to the hall. I want to read it in case somebody's just doing audio. So let's say
Okay.
for a motion or sideboard bar, do they get sent to the hallway? And you said yes, they go out to the hallway. That seems so dangerous because anyone could walk up to them and accidentally throw them
I
into
know.
a mistrial.
I'm like, I'm allowed to say, "Oh, good morning," but I'm trying, I'm like, "Oh my god,
Right.
I'm next to them or in the bathroom, and I don't wanna say
Right.
anything or do anything."
Yeah, mess it up. Yeah, we don't want a mistrial. Please,
No, they
after
sit
25
on the
days, please don't make us have a mistrial
they
motion.
sit in the hallway. They wait. They go in. They get sent to the hallway. They
Wow.
go back. They get sent to the hallway. That's it.
And a shout out to those who are replaying, who aren't here with us live, especially Tennis Girl. We missed you,
Tennis
and it's so good to
girl.
see you. Yes. Okay. Okay. So let me get back to our.
Okay, so then there's the second bench where people can sit, but when the jury comes in, because they're coming from the hallway, you
Mhm.
have to get out of that row. So you either go to the law enforcement or behind the next row, and the back row is saved for media. So
Okay.
2 rows that you have a choice of
Okay. Because why would you sit there if you know you have to move, right?
because it's a better viewpoint for me, and I don't care.
And then you just
So
move.
then the sheriff can go, "You there." And we're like, "Okay."
Okay. 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 Valid. Okay.
They
So,
let you know when you first come in, and there are very few observers, so
right. Right. The courtroom has not been filled to capacity, has it?
not even close.
Yeah. And I am so regretful. I was going to come up to see with Carla, actually. Carla still plans to go, but because of my situation, I can't.
Right.
And I'm so bummed. I'm so bummed. I really want to be there. So I'm just so excited that we're doing this interview. And this
Oh,
will
yeah,
not
it's
be
cool.
the last interview. We're going to have Marty on. Mona's husband, who has actually been going with her, he's not even generally interested in true crime. So that's going to be great to talk with Marty. And we'll also do verdict watch. Hopefully you and Carla can come on for that. I hope.
Yeah, that would be super cool. But
yes. And then we can talk a lot about the jury. And I know Carla wants to know about the jury.
Okay.
We're going to have to hold on that because I want to be able to get through.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for now. But I mean, unless you have like a really brief synopsis for
Super
her.
brief.
Yeah.
On the regular jury, 3 females, 9 males. On the alternates, 3 females, 2 males. That's my brief.
That's
diverse
awesome.
ages and backgrounds.
That's your taste of more to come. Yeah, because Mona does have way more the makeup of the jury. I'm super excited. Okay, so what was the thing that you liked the most? And I've got some more specific questions, but I'm trying to just kind of give you a chance to give you, like the whole vibe of your first trial. What did you like the most? What did you dislike the most so far?
I liked experiencing it from that viewpoint, especially because the coverage is so weird for the audio and visual. For me, this time, I don't find it very good feed.
It's not great.
I'm like, what? When are they coming? And it's a half-hour delay, so it's kind of more interesting to be there when it starts. My favorite part was sitting in there and observing everything before it started, to just sort of get the lay of the land and see everybody at work and their personalities. And Beth Silverman was very, very friendly to us and walked up the first time we were there and immediately went, "Oh, are you media? What are you doing?" Like very friendly.
Yeah.
And a couple of times some of the family was there. Aside from that, there haven't been, besides 1 or 2 stragglers on rare occasion, anybody else in the courtroom for the 4 times we've been there.
Well, downtown LA isn't easy to get to or park or any of that, so that's understandable. So, when you've gone, because you haven't, obviously Mona hasn't gone every single day of the 25 days. Which witnesses did you see when you were there live and in person?
I don't remember who I expected to see the first day, but whoever I did,
I remember, but you go ahead.
I know I wanted to see Morella. And then they bumped her. And they didn't say they were going to. And then there was a kind of a little scuffle with the attorneys and the judge when the prosecution wanted to go out of order and call somebody else. And the defense was not happy about that. And they wanted to bump her to Friday, but she wound up coming later that afternoon.
Right.
Because it didn't seem fair in their prep or something.
Yeah, they're going to make a fuss whether it really is a fuss or not. That's what defense attorneys have to do. So it may or may not have. I mean, that's their job. Like that's their job.
I feel like I know those attorneys so well, just from like what do? You just like sit there, although you do nothing except I did laugh 4 times in 2 days. I didn't mean to.
I know.
I don't know.
That's
I just
my biggest fear. It's like being in church. Like I'm always the one who starts. Like, and then you're not supposed to be laughing, and then you're laughing out loud. And
it was just one kind of laugh burst.
What made you laugh? Do you remember?
I only remember one of them because I was trying so hard to control this trial is so dragged out. It's not that notable. I know one of the things was when Austin was saying, he just turned around and went, "How would you like being pulled over by 6 people when you're on your way to work?" And his delivery just made me laugh.
I laughed at that at home. I laughed at that. There have been times when I've laughed at things at home and I wonder if Mona's laughing in the
courtroom. I know there was one the day before where Levine said, "Are you telling me you got into the trunk of a Versa?" And I just thought that was so funny. It's like, yeah.
Yeah. But what the heck? Okay, for those of you who are not familiar with this trial, this is like one reason you should at least listen to Austin's testimony. He was one of the co-conspirators who got dragged into this murder, who is a very sympathetic figure. Why did he put him in the trunk of the car? Why?
To
Why?
hide him. To hide him.
I know, to hide him, duh. But why? What's the point?
I don't know. They're a bunch of weirdos. I can't wait to see.
I mean, you would almost think, like, have Austin drive and I'll get in the trunk, right? Was he really? So my question,
Well,
I guess,
why not have his head
better
down?
state the question. The state that it would be is, was he really concerned about Austin, or was it for selfish reasons? Because I had some thoughts about this.
I can't say he was concerned about him because whatever their weird connection is with the dad in the Southeast, I don't even understand any of that relationship.
Well,
or
uncle
perhaps
is sort of a affectionate term that's used, like a lot of people call Shannon Sharp, who's an ex-football player who has a bunch of like shows now, and they call him Unc. So
yeah, I mean, everybody would say aunt, uncle to a close family friend, and he was tight with his dad. But maybe, we don't know, just speculating, maybe he owes him something for something he did for his dad. Or, I mean, what were they even doing? It's kind of like some really kind of skeezy type.
Oh, the whole thing is so the skeeze factor in this trial, in the Las Vegas connection, is just like barfy. Okay, so my feeling is it was for selfish reasons that Baker put him in the trunk. By the way, anyone listening, don't ever get in the trunk of a car, for goodness sakes, voluntarily. Like, I'd have to be dead or unconscious to be put.
You know, now that you're saying it, because we saw that he already wavered the day before when they were going to do the first hit, maybe he put him in the trunk to make sure he was going to get there. Because he could just pull open the car door at any stop sign, which there are umpteen in those neighborhoods.
I think it more has to do with he didn't want him to be seen with him. And he was going to go down
like
for this.
Detective? I don't know, but
because there were several things.
I'm just sorry I wasn't there for Sheila, because I found her a very interesting witness. And,
okay, we're going to get to Sheila. Okay, so let's not skip too far. Okay, and Carla says, yeah, Christopher Austin is extremely compelling in my opinion, and sealed the deal for the state. He is so compelling. And it's a heartbreak to see what he did for his friend Baker, who has been charged with Monica Sementilli, who actually has pled. So there won't be a trial for him. He's guilty, and he pled guilty, and he is going to be, however, a witness for the defense, trying to save his Monica from her fate.
He didn't plead guilty for like 5-6 years, though.
So one of the things I want to ask you is, are you in the last thing before we get into like breaking down the 25 days real briefly, can you see the defendant, Monica Sementilli, while you're in the courtroom? Can you see her? Because one of the notable things about this trial are the many faces and facial contortion that you see, at least when you see her face close up on Law and Crime, of Monica Sementilli. What are your thoughts about seeing her in person, and then the difference between seeing her in person and seeing her on the video?
The difference in seeing her in person is it's just a woman sitting there.
Yeah. You're seeing the back of her head, right?
And no, I can see the side of her face, especially when I try to see when she looks to the jury area. Occasionally she'll try to make a connection, a visual connection with someone. So I was trying to figure out who she's trying to look at, but she rarely did when it was very little, and she even forgot to make faces at some point. She was just sitting there all kind of plain without, or the I
Contortions.
feel,
I call them contortions.
yeah, she's a facial contortionist.
Yes.
I feel like
Whereas Wendy is
the,
just
the
a contortionist.
upset anytime she sees her loving husband is a bit
Ugh.
much. It's like catching a 5-year-old telling you they didn't do something wrong.
Right, right,
It's like, really?
right, right. It's pretty wild to see all of her faces. And of course, I look at the chat, the live chat on the video feed. So they have a lot to say about that. So, okay. So it's interesting. So it's just kind of like a person. You see the side of the face, but you don't see all the stuff that's going on, and it's going on her face, right? You don't see all that.
What I thought was interesting watching Monica is, the young lawyer with the wavy hair that he gets assigned to her a lot.
Yes.
Do you
The black hair.
remember in Charlie's trial at the end when Rashbaum actually went this way to be like 30 degrees away from Charlie when he just about had it?
Right, right.
That's how that young lawyer was sitting.
I'm really
He's
not.
not leaning in.
Mm-mm.
He's so in love with his boss, Levine, and he
Oh,
wants to do a good job for him.
oh,
So he's just like, aren't I doing good?
yeah.
On the
Yeah, he
figure,
has to
or
do well
whatever is
because he
going
wants
on
to
there.
get, yeah. Yeah, but you're right. The people that are sitting next to Monica in the rare case, and actually in the last day, Levine was sitting next to her after he did his 3-day drag out nothingness cross-examination of Austin, which personally felt flat on his face, but he did what he could. But he came over and sat next to Monica. You know why? Because that was the money for that defense. That was like, did I do a good job, Monica? Did I earn our $1.5
He
million?
looked confused to me. I don't even think he knew what was going on.
But
But Carla said,
no,
like
but
a
the point
puppy. That's
is
exactly.
his interaction with Monica as compared to what it had been, which is he hadn't been sitting with her at all. He went
did
over
it
there.
first. He did it
Right,
first.
right. He has at times, but that's to get her approval. She's the one they need. They are playing for an audience of one. And it's Monica Sementilli, that defense team.
Or they might be playing for an audience of one juror.
They might be.
But what I want to say with Levine, when he is going to do something, he's not going to sit next to her because he's working. And then they'll have the lawyer in between. He's going through papers.
Oh,
And
they're all working. The guys who are lower levels are probably working much harder than Levine and what's her name?
there's the one with the English accent. He's there
Mhm.
in one of the chairs. And there's a very young, very attractive female that's there every day sitting there. I haven't seen her do any cross yet.
They have so many lawyers and they have so many different accents. I find it fascinating. So the opening statements of the prosecutor for this case, if you haven't seen it, just listen to the opening statements. They lasted 1.5 full days, like full on 1.5 days.
It was over 8
The
hours of
the
straight speaking.
Yes, in the opening statement, it lasted overnight. She came back for a few more hours. The opening statements of the defense lasted about 2 hours. And can you compare and contrast those opening statements? What do you have to say about those opening statements before we get to the witnesses?
I think it wasn't well received when I read chats, but I
Oh,
was very impressed with her opening statement.
oh, good, because I didn't read the chats. Okay,
And I was
I was
very, the way that she laid it down, I would prefer less us, okay? But
no, the defense attorney. You can't
she,
even say that with that defense attorney and her ums. Okay, so
okay, she was so thorough and so like it's all there in order, and she stated everything, and she showed the pictures she fought to get in on, the
yeah,
reason those those X-rated pictures aren't in is because the defense won that motion.
Sure.
It's not that they wouldn't have shown it. It's that they can't because of pretrial
Sure.
motions.
Sure.
And oh, the other thing that I did forget to say was next to the judge and the juror and the whoever's testifying, the witness, there's a big screen, and the other screen is on the wall where jurors can't even really see it, and you have to turn that way to see the display.
Oh,
So it's
the
not
jurors can't see it?
the jurors, the ones, because it's such a long row, they can look over there, but the ones on the end, there was one person going like this, trying to read some of the financial data.
Yeah.
So, but they do when they get their transcripts,
Right.
they are all reading everything, and they're taking copious notes on what they're reading because
Okay, that's good to know.
they know they're going to take it away
Right.
afterwards.
Right.
But the other thing I wanted to say about the opening was I like the explanations, not just the details, but the explanations of why she was doing it that way, and already alerted us that she would be going out of order in the case because of when witnesses are available.
Right.
So she wanted to tell the story, and I suspect it's going to be as long a closing as she can bargain with and say, remember, we showed this, remember. And they've already heard it ad nauseum, repetitiously, so it might be effective. That's what I think.
Yeah, that's smart. She gave them the heads up that things might be out of order. I will just say I didn't look at the chat during the openings. I have looked at the chat on a couple different channels. Not always, but throughout, and I find it super humorous, and I find I'm generally in agreement with most of the vibe.
I couldn't stop laughing one day
during the openings. I didn't think to. I probably was doing something else. I don't know why that is, but I was really focused on it. And she, even though I felt like, wait, didn't she say this? Or like, I felt like, oh my God, this is going on a long time. It's really long, and I think she's repeating herself, but I did not feel annoyed by that. And I felt like super impressed by her storytelling, as Carla mentioned.
And I want to interject for a second because Ms. Silverman spoke to us very openly. She said, I've had this case since before the arrest. So she was originally assigned to the Valley DA area and the Valley Courthouse. So she's been sitting on this for 8.5 years and has obviously other cases she's working on. So it's like this giant book of what Georgia Kappelman must have on the Markell case all the years. And finally, and I'm interested in seeing if there's more than that fourth conspirator. Because of what the detective
mentioned flat out that she wanted more people to be arrested. I was shocked when Mitsy said that. I was like,
let me be clear.
She just said that out loud. Yes. That was amazing.
She waited where they annoyed the judge to the point where there wouldn't be an objection. She goes, let me be clear.
I know.
I wish I was there for her because I loved the way she was watching the defendant and what was going on in there. Yeah. You know what, Carla, he was arrested. Al Birdsong was arrested in Vegas at the time.
Yeah.
And then I guess they arrested him for participation, and when he could verify he was in Vegas, they let him go. But who knows if they'll pick him up on conspiracy now after Austin's testimony.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, certainly if Mitsy thinks he should be. I mean, the fact that she said that and they let her say that and there weren't any objections, and the fact that the defense attorney kept referring to Christopher Austin as Al Birdsong during his cross-examination. It's like,
and he called Fabio Sabio. He got like
I'm
4
just
names
saying, as
wrong.
far as Albertsa, I mean, his name came up a lot.
His
A
name
lot.
came up in another person's testimony, and I can't
Yes.
remember. That
Well, it
guy
was the
was so
girlfriend.
funny. The one
Yeah,
that he stayed in the apartment with, the
right.
older gentleman.
Yes. So okay, so that's a great segue. So let's go ahead and get to the witnesses because so the first day we had like the paramedic, one of the detectives, I should say, not the detective, the gym guy who now works for Nike. Chad had a lot of fun with that. The wannabe friend, our friend Jennifer Connolly, aka Elise. Um,
Right.
did you see our friend Elise in the courtroom? Did she
No,
stay?
nobody's there. I'm telling you, nobody's there
Well,
but
you
maybe 4 family
tried to
members.
go on the day that she was testifying, but it was bumped. There have been a lot of bumps. There have
No,
been
that was a
a lot.
long time ago.
Yes, I know. I know. But did you see her stay in the courtroom to listen after her testimony at
I
all? Have you
wasn't
seen
there when
her?
she testified, so I don't know.
Right, but you've been there after she
Oh,
testified.
no, she's not there.
You've not seen her. Okay. I
No,
was
but what
curious.
I wanted to track back on the first detective who's retired. I felt badly for him because they kept bringing up his partner
I
who
know.
had unalived himself,
Mhm.
and I think it was actually emotionally painful for him to,
Sure.
and everybody that worked with him, for him to have to keep hearing his name and his voice and read his words.
His
That was
recordings. Yeah.
that was rough. That was rough.
Mhm.
I felt emotional about that for that
Yeah, I
gentleman,
think
'cause I'm like,
everybody
"Why did he
did.
retire?" Oh, that's
Yeah,
why.
yeah. I'm
That
kinda
was his
glad they
partner.
said, at least they said, because everyone would have been like, "Well, where's this guy?" Right? They had to say that he's no longer with us, right?
Carla, if
So,
Deborah Obad testifies and I can find out when, I will be there. I am very interested in that testimony.
within the first several days, we had Luigi, Fabio's son from his first marriage.
He
I
was
called him
fabulous.
personally the most compelling witness. I had my little superlatives that I'm gonna add just from the video side, but and just side note for those who aren't familiar with this case or need reminding, by the way, Fabio left his first wife and baby son, Luigi, for Monica, and they lived in Canada before they moved to LA. So Fabio's colleagues at Wella, starting with Salvatore Marsuri, testified. The lady who worked in Geneva, Sally Schoen, the HR person in charge of benefits, testified. And also what was really brought out and memorable, at least for me, and I'm curious what you have to say, is all the colleagues, including the uppermost echelon at Wella that were colleagues of Fabio. They went out of their way to help Monica and even gave her and the girls his salary for 6 months, which is not traditional. That's not what they normally do. That's not policy, as well as benefits for 6 months. So those are kind of like so long ago, right? Do you even remember that? And then we had that sheriff patrol volunteer because he's retired now. He was on the force when this all happened. And then before we got to day 9, where we'll break things down a little bit more, we had the Superman text analysis dude. So all of that, tell me everything you want to tell me on that.
I there have been so many witnesses. I said I like the detective, and I'm gonna put. I thought Luigi was one of the best, most credible witnesses and well-spoken young men I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
He really had it together emotionally, intellectually. His vocabulary was superlative, I thought, for his choices and how calm he remained. And I'm going to lump all the Wella, PG, whoever, these
Yeah.
people, some that came in from Europe, I think, to do
Mm-hmm.
this.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I never knew, number one, there's that much international money in hair products.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
True.
And one thing I wanted to recall is that Fabio and his sister Morella were the ones that were very successful, I think, in Toronto. And they
Mhm.
were in these like hair Olympics. It's basically where you go on stage and cut, clean, you
Right.
have your model, and it's super fast. And they were very famous for that and had their own salon together and then two separate ones. Fabio didn't move to LA until I think 2012. So he only had 5 years there.
Right.
And
Right.
and I think he wanted to go back to Canada.
I I got the impression that it was that she wanted to go back to Canada.
I don't think so, but maybe. I don't know. I
I
mean,
mean,
it's
maybe not.
we're on day 25. We have all these wealthy people that came in, and I thought that they were very credible going of this was a horrible situation. We wanted to do everything we could. We paid for everything. We arranged everything. We paid for tickets. We paid for
Right.
venues. We paid for funerals, 2 in Los Angeles and 1 in Canada. We paid for the award show. We
Mhm.
paid for Monica to go on 2 vacations with Baker. I mean, come on, man.
Unknowingly, obviously, they didn't know they were paying for that, a the the DA, or excuse me, the prosecutor asked every time, "Were you aware that she was going on a vacation with her lover?" And they said, "No, obviously not."
Yeah, and I have to say it shouldn't it's not against the law to be completely kind of gross and skeezy, even though that but that's not why if they find her guilty, that should not be the reason that they
No.
find her
No,
guilty.
no, 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 no.
Because I
No. Do
I
you think
do I do think personally that the angle of the prosecution, insurance, I think they should have done more like she lived 2 separate lives and only wanted one of them, because it
gotcha.
seemed more credible. Because
Mhm,
seriously, in California, if you leave anybody, you get half,
mhm,
period.
mhm.
So, I think she just wanted to live her darker side of life and was like acting like a crazy teenager gone wrong or something. I mean,
Mhm.
her daughters had to know what was going on.
They seem to. They seem
What
to.
did you think
Okay,
about
so
her
let's get
daughter's
to okay,
testimony?
so let's get to that. That's a good segue. So, before we do that, real quick, do you remember Superman, the dude
Superman.
who did the
Oh, that
text
was so funny.
analysis?
Poor Superman. By the
Yes,
end of his testimony, I called him Clark Kent actually while we were there. I think we were there for him.
right.
He, the next day, was so wiped out. He was just
Yeah.
in agony being on the stand that
They
long.
really, yes. The defense tried to
And if you can
bring him out.
imagine if we're going, "Oh," and they're
Mhm,
going,
mhm.
"Ugh," can you imagine how the jurors feel sitting there with all this repetition, all
Right,
these
and that
votes in
has
the
to play
hallway?
into their strategy. Let's hope that it would play into their strategy, because you don't want to tick the jurors off. Because if you're the one making not only the witness, but the jury go, "Ugh," you're not in a good spot.
I feel the energy has shifted with the prosecution where they're really in kind of heads together, high energy, getting out of that courthouse, going across to their work right after. I think
Mhm.
they are kicking their pace up and finding a way to wrap it up, not drag it out.
Right, because they want the defense to be the ones
Yes,
dragging it out, and they
yes.
will be, because they're the ones who are gonna end up with the case, with their case in
Carla's
chief
Carla's
next.
saying all the right, yes, gain momentum. They have gained
That's right.
momentum. They seem very focused. One of my favorite moments was when the prosecutor said, "Do you remember when we met at my office across the street in the Hall of Justice?" That was priceless.
I actually remember that.
That was I mean, there've been a couple of really good lines, but the pacing of this, the breaks, and I don't understand why, if a juror was sick, why they killed a whole day.
Okay,
Why
we're going to
not
get to that.
excuse them?
So we're on day 9 now. Another
Oh,
colleague and brother-in-law of Fabio's sister Morella. So Morella's husband, Fabio's brother-in-law. Day 9. What did you think about day 9 with Fabio's sister and the brother-in-law? How did you feel about her?
I
I know she
think
came back, but that was the majority of her.
I think personally that she did fairly well, but in my observational opinion,
Mhm.
it's obvious that she has an axe to grind, which I
Sure.
think would interfere in the way she's immovable, or she comes in seeming with an agenda, which is rightfully so, but it needs to be a little softer and a little more, maybe, wow, I'm shocked, or not. You know what I mean?
Well,
I like,
so do you think the jury was turned off by her?
I don't, I would have to say that honestly, the jury is not that readable. You can't
No, they
really
never
tell
are. I'm glad you realize that.
they are not
That's what I've heard.
readable. And
Yeah.
there are some jurors that are very attentive, some that are not attentive,
Mhm.
some that takes notes, some that do not take notes. I
Okay.
did notice before court the other day, the clerk put 5 pads down, so I know those chairs are taking a lot of notes, and now that I think about it, those are the 5 that I watch taking copious notes. So they're
Mhm.
going through multiple memo pads.
Well, and just like you, people have different styles of taking information in. So if they're taking notes, that's great. You can kind of tell, but that doesn't mean they're not paying as much attention. But generally speaking, did you think that obviously some witnesses come across as clearly being for the one side or the other, and they come across as really uneven? Did you feel like she came across uneven, or just naturally so because she's his sister,
I No, I don't think she
the
came
victim's sister?
across as uneven. I'm
Okay,
saying I'm a very critical observer,
sure.
and I think the things over, but I also forgot to mention about the actual courtroom. This plays into your questions. It's very stuffy. The airflow is not good. You feel like you're just gonna nod out. And like one day I said
Oh
to
my God.
Marty, I'm like, there's just too much carbon dioxide in this room.
Oh
There's
my
no airflow, and
gosh. You need to bring an
there's
oxygen tank.
17 jurors there breathing out,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
a whole bunch of other. It's not an airy room, and every time you're there, you feel like it's like you need a nap.
So did you feel like that's how they were when she was testifying?
I think that the ones that pay attention do, and I think it's gonna be I'm already, like, imagining them get their own room. I guess there's only one room per courthouse for jurors to go to
That's
when
weird.
they deliberate, unless
Yeah,
they clear I don't even it's bad.
that's
So,
weird.
I think that I'm already, like, writing stories about who's gonna present their case once they finally get to talk.
The jurors. Right.
And there's
Okay.
one juror that you would think is so regular, plain kind of person. They write a lot of notes, but they just look like an office guy, or, an engineer with their thing in the pocket. I don't even know how to explain it. It's just like
Oh,
somebody that wears a
right.
short sleeve shirt to work and
I'm
has,
with
like,
you. Yeah.
certain kind of facial hair and certain kind of haircut. And you would think that they would be, like, easygoing, but I could see them presenting their case with all their notes, whatever they think, once the jury deliberates.
Okay, so how does that play into the lack of oxygen? Into the
Because there are only 5 jurors taking notes, Everybody else
Okay.
is like this. So I think they're going to need their fellow jurors to remind them of things that are
Okay.
hard to pay
Okay.
attention to
Okay.
because there's not fresh oxygen for your brain.
Okay. Okay, good. That's good to know.
They are allowed to have like coffee drinks and cans of things and,
Yeah.
also so they are having some kind of sustenance and sugar while they're there.
Mhm. Right. Okay. So Morello was interrupted, and we've had many situations with this trial where witnesses are taken out of order more than usual, but it's a long trial, so maybe it's not percentage wise more than usual. But I think that was the day where you went and you were thinking Fabio's sister was going to come back on, and you ended up with the financial analysis for the prosecution, and it
That
was
was torture.
pretty dry. Right. That was torture. It was torture
It
for
sh-
me. I was like, oh, I'm so
well,
sorry, Mona.
I
This is
think
my
I think it shouldn't have even been. It
well,
just wasn't even worth it.
well, it had to be, obviously, but I can imagine you would feel that way for sure. Because I
Then
felt
why
that
did
way
they
for
bring the
you.
second
I was
financial person on to go, "Oh, I made a
I
mistake,"
was
with the
so
same
excited for
information?
you to be there, and Marty, I knew Marty was your husband was going to be with you, and I'm like, oh no, why didn't they
Oh,
tell her?
well, I wanna
Like, why
tell
didn't they announce
a
this?
funny thing about being in court because I have worked in hospitals, I have worked for the government. I'm very comfortable doing whatever I feel like doing, as evidenced by my laughing. Marty felt like he had to be a good boy.
Yeah.
And one day, it's so tiring. I put my arm around him, just like
Mhm.
not like leaning on him. I just put my arm around him to comfort him for sitting through it or whatever. And he was like, he never has done this. Like, no, no.
You
He
can't do
thought
this.
like the judge was the principal that yelled at us for PDA when we were in high school in the
Right?
hallway and got in trouble. He was like,
I love that.
and then when I said, that's ASAP Rocky's trial. We could have gone in there. You know what I
Right.
mean? And he went, I just thought this was our classroom and we're not allowed to go anywhere else. It was just really funny. I'm like,
Probably would
he
have had more
feels
fun with ASAP
conspicuous.
Rocky that day.
I don't want to hear lawyers argue like
Oh
that.
my gosh, it was like, but it would have kept you awake for sure. Not that you want to hear it, but I didn't want to
No, it
hear it.
was just one of those popular trials. I'm very weird what I'm interested in and
I
what
don't
I'm
know
not.
how popular it was. I don't think it was very popular. It was hideous, is what it was. But okay, so she got interrupted for the financial guy, and then she got back on, but you had left. Did you actually see Morella on stand at
No,
all?
because
I didn't think
they
so.
were arguing that she was gonna come back on Friday, so I'm
Right.
like, "I'm outta here.
Right.
Let's
Okay.
just go to lunch and go home."
Right. Okay, that's all right. I mean, that's understandable. So then day 11, this was fun. The home security installer, the guy who installed the cameras and the home security, and he was actually the owner of the company, and he wore this shirt that was a walking advertisement, which was pretty funny. I'm surprised he was allowed to do that. Did you notice that? Then also,
I noticed he was advertising and good for him. He's like, "Hey." He seemed like he knew what he was doing and very
what did you
helpful.
think of him as a
I thought
witness?
he was credible and
Yeah,
very damning.
yeah, I thought so too. And then we had that super cute Asian detective surveillance. He was part of the surveillance team who actually in the car followed Monica and Baker. So then it starts to get juicy because now we've got detectives following them around. What did you think of him?
Which one? There were like 8 of
The
them that
first
were
one was the super cute Asian guy. I think he was Korean. A lot of people thought he was Chinese, but then when they said his name, it seemed like he was Korean. So I don't want to get it wrong. So I'm saying Asian.
I can't remember. You're reminding me of the fireman that was Asian, and I felt so badly for him that he had to testify like that. He had
Okay.
Tourette's, and they kept taking close-ups of him, and I was like, "This poor guy."
Oh,
And they,
okay. So I don't. Okay, so you don't really remember the first detective because I was really excited because he was the first guy who was like, "Oh God, these are the guys who were following Baker and Monica around because they got the they were onto them, right? And so then they were not only following them in cars, but they had 24-hour surveillance of their cell phones and their location, geolocation, and all of that. Okay.
What I liked about that group, because I don't see it as individuals, I see it as
Right.
the group that they were,
Sure.
the way they finally all testified. Their
Mhm.
boss came on, somebody came on and corrected himself for 30 seconds because he said Monica was in the passenger seat, not the driver's
Mhm.
seat. So
Mhm.
they made that right. What I
Mhm.
find interesting is the way they were so good at what they do,
Mhm.
and they all have a certain position, and
Mhm.
only one person writes the notes, but
Mhm.
they all know what happened from their point of view. That's what I found interesting, and it
Ye
also made me think, wow, I would watch, I wanna know what I always think, wow, Monica must be like, "I can't believe they were
Right?
taking pictures of me, and they were in that bar, and
Right.
they saw the fight, and they saw us go out the back, and they
All of
saw
it.
me hit on the guy on the bench," and
Yes. Yes. Of course, she would have known that ahead of the trial, but to be reminded of it again, even so in
well,
trial.
and the public is told of it. It's different when
Exactly.
you
It's
know
gotta
something.
be. Mhm. I had the
Yeah,
same
so I
feeling.
see them all
Mhm.
those witnesses as a unit.
Okay. Okay. And then day 13th, enter Chris Gable, the retired detective who was on the case, but now and he was on for several days.
The gray-haired guy?
Yeah, well, he was retired, so he's got gray hair.
No, the one that was the partner, the original one on the case, or a different
Right.
one?
And so he was on for like, I want to say at least 3 days. But of course, they hopped on and off because of the out of order witnesses. But he was on for a super long time. Don't remember if you don't remember, it's okay. I could bring his face up, but it's
Yeah, if
okay.
I had a picture, I go, "Oh, right, that guy." This is literally such a long, drawn out trial.
Well, right. And I broke it
But
down
I'm
by
all
day.
in. I'm gonna make sure I see this from beginning to end, and I'm even thinking about a couple other trials I saw. I'm like, "Hey, they never sentenced that." Like, I like the completion of reading it in the newspaper, following the trial,
Right.
trying to find whatever interviews I can online or anything, and there are not that many.
Right. Yeah, you'll remember him when you go back over it. So then day 14, so day 13, Chris Gable came on. I just thought he was just super likable. Uh, he was super relatable.
I'm gonna look up
Um,
his picture, Detective Gable.
well, and I was going to say we can go over the some of these again at another time. This is just sort of meant as a review. So
Mhm.
for people who aren't watching, but and then yeah, and so he was the partner of the detective who's no longer alive.
Oh,
And then
yeah, I
on
know
day
him.
14, right. And so then on day 14, we had Janet Kober, financials. She seemed a little dopey to me, HR director. So we
The one
had
that lives in New York, or the
she
one
was
that's
yeah, she I don't remember where she lives. And then we had her pop on out of order, and then we had Detective Gable came on. Then day 15, we had more of that, more financials, and then we had the sick lady with the mask, who I know you remember, who was also financials, and then we had more of Detective Gable.
she was not a
Yes,
good witness. That was terrible.
I thought so too. I'm glad you said that because that's what I was asking. Because from the video, from watching the live stream, I was like, why do they even have her on? She's a horrible witness. Is she that sick or is she just a bad witness? What do you think?
I th I think that I think the prosecution has too many details. All they had to do was come back and clean it up and say, "Yes, but when it was sold for the estate, how much was it worth?" That whole amount, instead of saying what it was worth, like she was figuring it out, like she was gonna sell it
Mhm.
right away in 2017. That was poorly done, and that was not a good day for them.
Sometimes I agree. I got that impression too, but then sometimes I like to give all attorneys on either side the benefit of the doubt, because there's probably one small thing inside of that they had to have to the jury for their case to come together. So I'm just going to give them the doubt on
I think it's just like, I think they were just like beating a dead horse at that point.
It felt like that, but I'm just saying I'm going to give them, my personal feeling, not yours, but I agree. It just seemed like, why is she even here? She seemed dopey.
And I watched the
Excessive.
jury, and I don't think they appreciated that testimony.
That's my
all.
question. Right. That's exactly why
You
I
can't know what
trying
they're thinking, but
No.
observationally,
Yeah.
it seemed like it should not have happened.
Okay. There must have been some reason, but I agree, and I'm glad to know your opinion of that. So for sure. And then so that again, day 14, like more of Gable, more financials on day 15th, more of Gable, and then day 16, we're getting there. We had Jane Kwan, LAPD forensic scientist, the criminalist. She was very impressive, in my opinion. Were you watching that one on video, or were you there live?
Was that the ME?
No, the forensic scientist, criminalist.
I don't think I was there for that, because I would love that, and I would have loved seeing a report.
I know you would. And then they had
just give me all the details and let me read every medical thing.
I know you love that,
please.
And the same day they had Randy Zapata, excuse me, LAPD forensic scientist, and he was serology. Blah. So I don't think you were there for that either. And I know that's up your alley. So you don't remember Jane or Randy? And it's
not
okay.
really. It's all lumped into me as, okay, you have these people on to build this part because you have to show it. You basically have to show, one, the person's deceased, two, this is how they lost their life, and three,
well, we're not even there yet. We're not even there yet. So day 17, we've got Wella was the guy who was actually a friend of Fabio, and then he brought him on to Wella. So I don't know if you remember him. And then the purple hair lady from Wella who booked
she doesn't work for Wella anymore.
Right.
She has her own business, right?
That's right. And she booked rooms for Monica and Baker because she was working with Wella at the time, and she would book rooms. So and then that was the day we had the sketchy friend of Monica, Sheila Salahian, I guess. What did you think of Sheila? Because you brought her up earlier. So now
this is what I think of Sheila from watching. I was not there in person. I would have liked to have been there for that. To see the dynamics of Sheila and Monica. That's what I would have liked, because they're so close. They have to walk right by them. So I thought, what's up with these women and these older men in this kind of weird life, this hedonistic kind of lifestyle? They were obviously friends. They were party friends. They were maybe swinging friends. They had a good time together, friends, all four of them. And then what I found the most incriminating in her testimony was she literally said that was before we knew what they did, or that was before we knew they did the name. I don't know if I'm allowed to say on YouTube.
Oh, you can say it on my channel.
Oh, like
you can say anything you want.
We didn't know that they murdered him yet.
Right.
At that time. So we were, but she knew that Monica and Baker were hot and heavy like the whole time. So they were part of that life with them. And what's up with this racquetball? I thought that was over in the 80s. I didn't even know it was a thing.
Okay. What did you think about Sheila's credibility and her face and her presentation? Did you find
I think she was credible. I think I think it was important to have somebody that had that flavor, that had the awakening, that had both questionable morals and some good indignation.
So are you saying then that Sheila was okay with swinging, but she wasn't okay with murder?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they're like, what? As soon as there was any, like at first, and remember, they stopped seeing them right away because they suspected it. And then when they weren't arrested and thought they didn't do the murder, then they started partying with them again. Then they traveled with them. And did you catch that picture of Sheila and Monica dancing?
Oh, lovely picture. Oh, I don't think anyone didn't capture that one. It was lovely.
That's the
Yeah.
one with,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a choice. So, but my yeah, but I just I felt like that was one witness who I just did not understand sometimes because of the way her facial expressions. And I'm guilty of mostly listening to trials, so I'm not looking at the person very carefully. I'm not looking at the video of the witnesses and whatnot. But in this case, for whatever reason, I was watching her testimony, and I just felt like and I didn't feel like she was lying, right? So I agree with you that she felt on video very credible, but she also had this look about her that was like weird. Like, what is she really thinking type of thing? Is she lying? Or yeah, it was just an odd facial demeanor. And I don't know if you got to see her video since you weren't there in the
I
court.
did watch that, and I watched it intently because I
She
was
seemed to have a
interested.
grin on her face the whole time.
She had a lot of work done, and she wants to be pretty, and that's all I thought it was. And I thought, wow, she's showing Monica, I'm still getting the hair, the fillers, the makeup, whatever the massages, I'm working out, I'm getting my plastic surgery. I look good. Enjoying lockup. I think she maybe would be angry at Monica for ruining her party by doing something so terrible.
That's interesting. That's
Mhm.
really interesting. Okay, cool. I'm so glad we're talking about this. I've been dying to talk to you. Okay.
I like, even if I'm on a chat, I don't watch this in real time because it's so dragged out.
Oh,
But
yes.
even if I am watching part of it in real time and I'm in a chat, if
Mhm.
I'm in a chat, I'm going to go back later and watch the testimony carefully.
Yeah, you're really good about
Because
that.
it makes me feel, if I'm going to watch a trial, I'm going to watch it, and it
Yeah.
makes me feel differently. And I might have to watch it at 1.12 or 1.25, but I can't watch it faster than that because I think the pacing is important to understand what's going on.
Yeah, you're really good at that. I'm not as patient.
I know, I'll say, Dawn, you have to see it. You can't just listen. You have to see it.
Well, I will go back
so,
when you
it's
when
so
you tell
visual.
me. Yeah.
But I actually am so curious as to how this trial is going to turn out in general, because I think it could really go. I think it's possible for a conviction. I think it's possible for a hung jury. I don't see an exoneration. But it'll be real interesting to find out if they ever get to their actual room and not the hallway.
It'll be guilty. Yeah, I can't wait for the verdict watch, but it's going to be
It
guilty.
might not be. This is not like other states. It's a different kind of place. And they're really, the defense is really playing up their trust in law enforcement.
Do you realize how few people are found not guilty in the United? Like, it's so rare. It's so rare. And the proof, the evidence against her has, like, look at all these witnesses we're talking about.
Like, you didn't speak with Marty, and he doesn't understand circumstantial. He doesn't think circumstantial evidence is evidence.
I cannot wait.
Like, it's the evidence.
There's no direct evidence in most cases. Okay, let's go to, and then right after her, I thought she was super odd. So that's my superlative for her. Super odd. But I love that I didn't think the plastic surgery. I don't know. Okay, well, I
I
don't want to get into
remember
that.
I live in Los Angeles. I
Well, I live close
understand
enough to Los
certain,
Angeles to know. I said the difference.
you
Okay,
sort of
so day.
do, and you have to know the sections.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So day 18th, we have the car dealership manager and the car dealership saleswoman. So for this, just gonna insert here, most eager beaver, the witness who notified the prosecutor, the car dealership saleswoman, and then we had the strip club owner. And I don't think I mentioned on day 17th, we also had Ron Ray, who was Baker's friend from Las Vegas, who also seemed to have somewhat of a conscience,
I
much like
remember
what you
his
were
name
saying.
more than I remember him. I think we need like bullets of each of their faces.
Well,
So,
that's
okay.
the face. Yeah. Well,
No,
we
because I
had that.
just,
Yep. That's who we had. And he
who was
also
the,
seemed to
I
be
know
like
they had like 5 witnesses one day, and I'm like, sure, that's the day I couldn't be there, whatever.
he reminded me very much of your description of the previous one, the friend, Sheila, Ron Ray. He had a wife who, after dinner,
Oh, I remember him. They're the ones that don't drink.
the wife went home. She didn't want to be a part of it. And then he was like, this is sus. I don't like this. I'm leaving. You're embarrassing us. You're embarrassing us with your behavior at this restaurant where we actually live and we know people here. So yeah, he really stood out to me to be one who was like, yeah, I'm drawing the line here, dude.
He's
I'm
a
not.
it's interesting because he's a behind in the alley deal maker and knowing everybody. I know people like
Yes.
him. I know
In
everything. I know
Las
everyone. I
Vegas,
can get
right.
in. I'm the shiznit of all things. He still associated with him because he likes showing off
Well, that's
how
his job.
who he knows
Yeah,
and
that's
what
his
he
life
can do.
for sure. That's good. That's good. Okay, so again, back to 18 then, the car dealership and the salesman and the saleswoman. What do you think about that? And then we had the strip club owner.
I
Yikes.
think that wasn't even necessary, the car dealership thing.
The saleswomen or the sales dealership, because they did have
Either
to
of them. It's
establish.
like we already
Well, they had to
know.
establish. No, we don't know. This is court. They have to establish certain facts. You can't just skip over
Boring.
them. Okay, I get what you're saying. The dealership woman, the saleswoman, I think they did not need they did need the manager to establish the purchase and
The
that
reason
interaction.
they had her, Dawn, is because Baker got in the car. Baker showed up. She drove them. The manager never saw him. He heard he
Right.
was there. That's why they
So
brought her.
you're answering your own question right there. That's
No,
why
I was just like, all right, she had a
they
family.
had to have them.
She got her tricked out car she drove for a month or whatever.
But about the saleswoman, she contacted the prosecution. She wanted to be there. She wanted her 15 minutes of fame, right? Did you get that
Yeah,
impression?
she thought she was so important and she wasn't. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Which is probably why you said she.
To anybody that's excited to get a subpoena and come to court, that's concerning.
Exactly. And then we had the older black gentleman, I guess you could call him, a strip club owner. What'd you think of
Love
him?
that guy.
Mhm,
Air Force vet.
mhm.
Go vets. Love my vets. Gotta say. He's just living in his apartment. His mom just passed away. Baker hit him up, said, hey, Queen Olive. Baker hit him up. He's like, okay, you can stay here because Baker may pretend he was there to help him in his time of need and he needed to lay low. That whole thing was gross.
Yeah,
I
very.
felt so sorry. And that poor guy, he had obviously never had a subpoena in his life. For him to sit there and not understand why court is held the way it is and you're not allowed to say anything. And they objected so many times during his testimony. And I felt like it was good testimony. I think he was a good witness.
Good, good. Yeah, that was interesting. That was really interesting. I'm glad
And
you.
remember, he said, I only met Al once. They're bringing Al in through a lot of
Oh,
people.
they're definitely bringing it out.
And we saw pictures of people with Al and Monica in that
Oh,
picture in
yes, we did.
Vegas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. Okay, so then Mitsy enters the scene. We're getting toward the end. We're getting toward the end of our live stream here and getting toward day 25. So Mitsy enters. Detective Mitsy Roberts, retired from LAPD. She is now a writer-producer for Ballard and previously for Bosch on Amazon, which is a detective show. Ballard is actually based on Mitsy.
She went loosely.
Yes, she was so cute. There's a great link, which I'll put in the chat right here. I'm not going to open it. I was going to open it, but we're running a little bit long. So let me just put it here for you. If you're interested and you're replaying too, you can check the live chat. It's from screenrant.com, screen rant, not rat, screenrant.com. And it's about Bosch and Renee Ballard and the real person inspiration behind that show. And that is our witness on day 19. And she will continue with the best timeline ever on any trial. Don't you think?
Yes, she's excellent. So together, so smart, so calm, such an excellent witness, so obvious in that she is 100% sure Monica is guilty and is very upfront about that. And the way she looks over at Monica is my favorite part of her testimonies, when they're having their 8,000 sidebars and she just goes like this, right at her, like, I know what you did. And she just stares right at her with a certain, like, and she was not retired while she was working on Bosch. She was doing both, because remember, she was getting ready to retire. And then she did not want to arrest Austin because she knew they needed a confession and they weren't there yet with how to make that happen, because the police up in Oregon refused to bring them in without an arrest warrant, because she already wanted to do it, but they weren't ready for the arrest warrant.
Right, but she made it very clear that she believes he should be charged with these other conspirators.
Oh, she was sure she was going to get a confession out of them, but the timing wasn't right.
But at this point, she believes that he should be charged. And do you think that there will be charges to come, or do you think it's over with him? What was your sense?
Oh, you mean for Birdsong?
Yeah.
It sounded to me like she thought there was more than just Birdsong too that was out there.
Yes, she did.
So whoever these people are, they're on the radar of the police. I don't know, because we're sitting here with the Markell case waiting for arrests that haven't happened. So with conspirators, you never know.
But they've been named. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So you think there's somebody out there that's not named yet that we don't know about, or is it somebody that's...
Yes, I do. I think there's more than one Birdsong in Vegas that she was talking about, or here. She's like, let me make clear, there are more people, not person.
Yes, she did. She did. That could be
I
dangerous.
fear to speculate on some of it because I don't want to.
That can be dangerous for a witness to say something like that, because then the jury could be like, well, wait a minute, maybe we should hold, that can be a dangerous thing to say. Actually was very surprised she said. I was delighted she said it, but I was very...
I think it went well. I think it landed well because they're working on a conspiracy between people.
Well, and his picture has been up there and he's been mentioned a million times. So it's it's okay. But she
as well as Deborah Obod, who we all want to see.
Yep. She mentioned more than one person. Exactly. So day 20, we got the lockup security officer for the courthouse and all that lovely stuff that went with Baker and Monica being arrested and being in lockup in
kites and toothpaste and recordings and
cells next to one another. Can't even with that. And then we had Jessica Sementilli, Monica and Fabio's oldest daughter. And I named her, just from my perspective, the most happy witness and inappropriate. And then the medical examiner. What'd you think of Jessica?
I felt like if I were doing a psych interview, that she would not have the appropriate emotions for the
Mm.
questions,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd be concerned about that, to
Mm-hmm.
walk in like she was going to a party
Yeah.
by the pool or
Very
something,
happy. Yeah. Yeah.
and not kind of put herself together in a serious manner was kind of odd. But then if you think about her parenting,
Right.
she hasn't learned, right?
That's exactly
Um,
it.
I felt like she was not helpful to her mom the way that she came across. And I felt like from her first time on the stand to the second, somebody had seriously taken her aside
Mm-hmm.
and discussed some things with her. And the most interesting thing she said to me, like in my opinion, was talking about her sister. She never speaks of it. So I'm intrigued if they're actually going to bring the younger
Yeah, I'm
daughter up.
wondering. That was another question I had for you. What do you think? Are they going to bring in the daughter who found him dead?
They said they were going to, that both of her daughters would be there to testify in the opening
Mhm.
statement. So I'm assuming that's the plan.
All right. By the way, I meant on the start to read the actual let me find it here. The actual
Affidavit.
indictment. Let's see, I have it here. So the the grand jury, I'm just going to read the first part and then a section on page 6. That's kind of interesting because we're getting into the daughters now. Um, so the grand jury indictment reads: Superior Court of the State of California for the County of Los Angeles, the people of the State of California, plaintiff Robert Louis Baker, his date of birth, and Monica Sementilli and her date of birth, and the case number. And this is an amended felony complaint. Defendants, the undersigned, is informed and believes that count 1 on or about January 23rd, 2017. Remember, this is 8 years ago. In the county of Los Angeles, the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section blah, blah, blah was committed by Robert Louis Baker and Monica Sementilli, who did unlawfully and with malice and aforethought murder Fabio Sementilli, a human being. Notice the above is a serious felony within the meaning of Penal Code Section blah, 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 and a violent felony within the meaning of Penal Code Section blah, blah, blah. It's further alleged that the murder of Fabio Sementilli was intentional and was carried out by the defendant, Robert Louis Baker and Monica Sementilli. She must not have a middle name. For financial gain within the meaning of Penal Code Section blah, blah, blah. It is further alleged that the murder of Fabio Sementilli was committed by defendants Baker and Sementilli, and that the defendant intentionally killed the victim by means of lying in wait within the meaning of the Penal Code Section blah, blah, blah. It is further alleged that in the commission and attempted commission of the above offense, the said defendant, Baker, personally used a deadly and dangerous weapon, to wit, knife, said use not being an element of the above offense within the meaning of Penal Code Section blah, 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 and causing to show the above offense to be a serious felony within the meaning of the Penal Code blah, blah, blah. And then count 2, prior and on about January 23rd, 2017, again, 8 years ago, in the county of Los Angeles, the crime of conspiracy to commit a crime. That's why the trial is so long. In violation of Penal Code Section blah, 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 a felony was committed by Baker and Sementilli, who did unlawfully conspire together with another person and persons whose identity is unknown to commit the crime of murder in violation of section blah, blah, blah of the Penal Code. A felony that pursuant and for the purpose of carrying out the objections and purposes of the aforesaid conspiracy, the said defendants committed the following overt acts and at the in the county of Los Angeles. So it goes on to lay out all of kind of like everything she covered in great detail in the opening statement. One of the things I wanted to mention is if you scroll through this indictment, get down to page 6, you will read that there are several notices. And the third notice is a suspected child abuse report, SCAR, may have been generated within the meaning of Penal Code, one of the penal codes, involving the charges alleged in this complaint. Dissemination of a SCAR is limited by a penal code, and a court order is required. Now, what that is we haven't gotten to it in the trial yet, and so we haven't talked about it tonight. But what this is when and what they're lying out so far, and we now have the older sister and what you alluded to her not talking about with her younger sister, is that Monica has allegedly given Baker enough information in terms of the security of the home and that kind of thing, and keeping people in and out of the home so that he could, in fact, murder Fabio, and so that not Monica, but her youngest daughter would find his dead body. So I just wanted to mention that is in the indictment. And we've not gotten to it in the trial yet, but you mentioning the younger daughter. So I wanted to kind of lay that out for anybody who, again, hasn't seen this trial.
It was in the older daughter's testimony and in everyone's testimony that she showed up a minute after they left in the Porsche, the younger daughter, Isabella, and she called 911, or she found her dad. And she was traumatized forever. And she's the only one that accepted the offered therapy out of that group.
Yeah. Did you notice that Jessica claimed that one of the paramedics or fire department—
I don't believe it.
Attendants, for the audience, I'll finish. I know you know what I'm thinking. Said to her, "Your father is dead," when she showed up. And what she said, what really beyond that blew my mind, because of course a paramedic would never say something so crass or prepare somebody emotionally for that. But she said either 3 or 4 times, "I just kept my head down. I just kept my head down. I just kept my head down," as she, in a very short order, walked into the house to see what was going on. I thought it was really interesting that she kept saying, "I just kept my head down." Why would she say that?
Well, one of 2 reasons. Either one, she already knew what happened before she got home, so she didn't want to look around at the reality of it. Or 2, she wanted to keep her head down because she doesn't seem like a non-inquisitive viewing person to me. She's saying it so she can't say any details or get anything screwed up, or I don't know. She just has her script and she's sticking to it. But no way. I have worked with so many paramedics in my life, and they would, first of all, nobody would even let anybody in there without saying, "Excuse me, who are you? Can I see some ID?"
Exactly.
So that was, nobody would blurt it. And they might say, your mom and your sister are there. You can go sit with them, but prepare yourself something unfortunate as hell. I don't know what they would use, but they would not say that.
Plus, it's a crime scene. They're allowing this person just to walk into bloody footprints. The whole thing just seemed kind of weird to me. The only plausible, like giving her the benefit of the doubt, saying, "Okay, something horrible has happened. You really probably should avoid looking in this direction. So therefore, I kept my head down because he told me." That's not what she said.
I don't think they would have even let her in.
Well, I know. I'm just saying the best. I'm giving her some grace here. I'm trying, because, quite frankly, I think she's in Mitsy's scope. I
was wondering that too.
Thank you. I'm so glad.
But I didn't want to say that. But I was wondering with the multiple people.
it seems like I'm surprised I'm thinking that way
You
because
know,
I
the
wasn't
most
expecting that.
the most notable part of her testimony was, "How are you doing?" "Great.
Yeah.
What? I have a great life. I have a great boyfriend. I have great friends. I have a great apartment.
Everything's great. I know. Mhm.
I have great
Wow.
earrings." You know what? This is how I think of all those, and I have a lot. I have like 3 in here, but I have multiple holes on both sides. The hers are smart because that's where the acupuncture points are. So I
Oh,
could see that it could keep her calm.
yeah, so that's why I'm calling her the most happy witness and
So
appropriate.
who was at the end?
So
Because
then we
we
had the medical examiner start, and who I would say is the most dry witness ever. I mean, I know he's got to be dry because he's a medical examiner, but good Lord, this man.
I loved him.
I knew you would. I knew you
I loved him.
would stand it. It's
I
like, come
I
on.
have the only person I liked more as a medical examiner were in Todd Mullis's retrial hearing,
Todd
where
Mullins.
they're just scientists going, "I," corn rake guy.
Yeah, oh,
He
that
goes,
one.
he
That
goes, "I this." He was perfect. I loved his explanations. Yeah, I don't think they got anywhere with him because it was pretty cut and dry, and I don't
yeah.
think anybody did anything wrong but interpreting in their own words. But
Okay.
I thought he was
I knew
fabulous.
you would love him, but you're like we are cut from different. Like I can't listen to any of
Oh, I
that.
was so
No offense
excited
to
they
the
showed 2
medical
pictures.
examiners.
I was like,
Like,
"This is great."
well, I'll just skip this day. I didn't totally skip it, but he just his person. I don't know. He was funny. He reminded me of somebody, but I couldn't put my pin on it. And then,
But, Theo, I know you don't like to talk about, but I just have to say by seeing that testimony, that was so vicious and so
oh,
much strength was put into that.
yes, I'm sure.
I just was in shock actually of because
I'm sure.
Fabio was a large man,
Hmm.
and for them to go do that much damage was
That quick.
notably extra vicious.
Hmm. I think I kind of figured that. So yeah, I'm sure. Um, so sad.
Who did we
Okay.
leave off with because they just
So
like
then
ended
day
court?
21, Mitsy returns, and day 22, we start with Christopher Austin. And
But
Mitsy
do
has
you
not
remember
finished yet.
the defense the
Mitsy will be
defense
returning.
doesn't want to they don't want to cross uh Mitzi until all of her testimony's over because he had
Correct.
ample
Correct.
opportunity to, and he said no.
Correct. So Christopher Austin was on for like 3 days. I called him the most sympathetic witness. What did you think about? Tell us about what your take on Christopher Austin. And for those who are just new to this, or just by way of reminder, Austin is a co-conspirator who has been arrested and who is serving time already.
He's an
So
accomplice.
he was a witness for the prosecution in hopes of getting some relief on his sentence. He seemed very sympathetic. He seemed very sorry. And we don't often see that in trials where we see people who want to appear to be sorry, to be regretful, to but he seemed authentic to me. What did you think?
I felt like, and I saw him both on TV and in the courtroom 2 different days because he was on a third day. I felt like he was believable. Um, I thought he kind of really got it together by the end to stay like the way he would go to his Zen place
Mm-hmm.
and get through what he needed to do. I felt like he was not only remorseful about being caught, which everyone is.
Sure.
I regret being caught. He I
No.
think he really did regret doing the crime. I think he truly was suicidal And it sounds like he went the other direction to help people like himself not get into these situations. I find it kind of frightening that he's the one watching over troubled youth.
Okay, so you just lumped that. Let's back up. Okay, so he was working with troubled youth before this happened. Okay.
Well, that's
Not,
scary too.
I'm just saying for our audience so that they understand. Because you just said a lot of really great stuff. I gotta dissect it for our audience. So first of all, Christopher Austin seemed remorseful for actually killing. And why do you feel that way? Not just for being arrested, but why do you feel that he was remorseful? What did he do when you saw him in court that made you feel authentically that he was truly sorry and remorseful for what he did in terms of the murder, not being caught?
Because when they repetitiously ad nauseum interviewed him about the same things over and over, you could see his memory thinking of it. He didn't have a good reason why he did it, aside from whatever he owes to Baker that he's not saying.
He did it because his friend dragged him into it, basically, is the story. Right?
He said he asked me to. Unc asked me to, so I did it.
Exactly. Okay, so beyond that, so then what did he do to make you feel like he was sorry? When you saw him?
His energy. First of all, I watched him walk in because, one of the reasons I wanted to go to court is like, and I even told Beth Silverman, I said, I want to see a felon. When are Austin and Baker coming? I want to see. And she's like, it's not going to be a big deal. But he just came out in that shirt. They have the belt, the chain belt. He can't move his hands.
Yeah.
He doesn't have leg chains on. I can see everything in there. And he just goes to the stand and he's just you just believe that he's a genuine human being there to not just hopefully get out before he's 80, but he's doing what he said he would do. I think he's believable.
Okay.
I don't think him getting choked up was an act.
Well, I felt like he only got choked up and it seemed very real, like it wasn't put on like Monica's faces, when he was asked questions that would make him recall the act of murdering Fabio. That was when he would be like, oh, he didn't want to go, like it made him sick, like to go back to that.
I would venture, I would bet that if a behavioral interpreter or therapist watched him, they would believe it too. When he wanted to remember, he looked up the right way, he breathed the right way.
Right, but when he cried, it was when they were talking about the actual murder. He wasn't crying the whole time. He wasn't like, he was off and on, and there was like a natural ebb and flow, right? So that's why I think, for me personally, that's why I wanted to ask you, is because for me personally, I noticed that it seemed he seemed extremely genuine to me, and very sympathetic. I felt watching it on video, which you got to see him in person, but I felt like, oh, don't make him recount that again. He's already had, I wanted to protect
you're
him.
more sympathetic because even though he comes across as sympathetic, he did that.
Oh yeah, he did it. Yeah,
it's like, okay, pay the piper.
But the point that we were talking about is that he was genuine about it.
Right. It's odd because he doesn't seem like a bad person.
Exactly. He a lot of guys do things just because their friends tell them to. It's really stupid. And that is the oldest story.
But
like,
he's 39. He was 32.
I know, but
I don't understand any of the dynamics of this.
Of course, we're not that person.
But I believe not only, it's not just the tears, Dawn. I not only believed him, but could visualize him like going like that and shutting his eyes
He said
because
he
it
had
was
his
too
eyes
much
shut.
for him.
Yes.
I believed his eyes were closed. I believed he got in the car. I believed he kept his head down. I wish that somebody could actually talk to him, but now, thank goodness, he's not there, although Levine might call him back again.
Oh, yeah. So he also not only did, good point you just made, but about putting the head down. So not only did Baker put him in the trunk to bring him there to the murder scene, he then told him to put his head down as they left. And so again, there's only one person on the videos, except for when they jogged up, but in the car, like, so if they were picked up by
I
any
thought
other
we saw a little bit of that later.
surveillance. So
Huh.
there was a reason that Baker told him to be in the trunk and to put his head down. I thought that was just super odd. And there's a reason for it. And we're going to find out. We're going to know. We're going to know the answer to that.
Maybe. There's going to be a lot of unanswered things from this
It's
trial.
significant. That's too significant to not know. I mean, I kind of feel like I already. So I just thought that was just really weird.
What the heck with him
weird that
sitting in
he
the back of a police car?
agreed to do it. What?
I
What?
still can't believe he was in the police car.
Who?
Austin driving the knee.
Oh, when he got, yeah. Okay. So just so for people who are listening to us who don't know what you're talking about, because that's kind of helpful. Okay. So yeah. So let's get back to that. So that's a whole side thing, right? But yes, he was arrested or he was pulled over for a traffic thing on the night of the murder and let go.
And I think we all in the courtroom were thinking the same thing, why he was pulled over.
Of course. Yes. Okay. All right. So, but not related to this case. I mean, it is related to the case, but it's just kind of one of those funny things that happens. So, and then, so after Christopher gets let go, yeah, the defense is like, no, we're going to have him back, which was probably one of the, I will say for me, I felt like hitting Levine at that point. It's like,
so did everybody.
Just stop it. Come on. You had 3 days with him and you got nowhere.
I want to backtrack on one thing and then we can wrap it up.
It costs a lot of money to hold a witness like that. He's inconveniencing everyone.
That's the least of the money. We're paying for 2 detectives to sit behind this.
It's just unnecessary and it's annoying. So thank you for being.
Surprisingly, the first afternoon that Levine crossed him, he came across better in person than he did on TV.
Yeah, you said that. That's what I wanted to ask you about. So
not the next day. He lost everybody in the room. Everyone was exasperated.
Were you in the courtroom the next day?
Mm-hmm.
So elaborate, please. Go over this.
When the cross started on defense with Levine and Austin, the co-killer of Fabio.
Christopher Austin. Yep.
Meaning Levine, he was sort of had it together and he was making some points and people were paying attention. Then the judge ended the day probably an hour early because he likes to do that. And then when we got back, I just figured they'll boot him and I'll see some financial person like usual. And, and then he got back up and I felt like I was watching someone that needed to go to memory care, watching that cross. When he got up in the morning, everybody walks in, the room is stuffy. They're all tired. You're sitting on your benches, more of this. And it got worse and worse. He did not have his act together. He looked unkempt to me too, like he needed a haircut and his suit didn't look as well fitting as it did when I first saw him. So I think they lost if they gained anything, then it wound up to be a big win for the prosecution with Austin, in my opinion. Are you still there, Dawn? I lost Dawn. Hello? Are we done? I lost Dawn.
Keep going. I'm here.
I was like, what
You don't have to
happened?
stop. Sorry about that.
Oh, I didn't
Technical
know.
difficulty. What I will tell you, I could hear everything you were saying. So what I will tell you is on the video side, I didn't see personally any different. I would love to hear what the chat says. And if you're replaying, let us know in the comments. I didn't see any difference between the first day and the second day of Levine. So you were noticing, obviously you were noticing more in the courtroom, obviously, but for me personally, it seemed like the same. It just seemed like a repeat. Does that make sense?
No, it was a very poor repeat, done poorly, done worse, and it was annoying. And I would say we don't know what a juror thinks, but the 5 that take notes, stop taking notes.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. I
Okay.
would. Yeah.
Everyone was checked out.
Sorry.
He lost a zillion objections. It was ridiculous. And his young puppy guy was trying so hard to get him the right information.
Yes,
He
he was.
seemed
I saw that.
confused to me. He seemed like he didn't take his memory medicine or something. He just when he was sitting next to Monica after that, he just looked like vapid.
Wow. I felt like he looked that way the whole time.
Nope. He's changed.
For the video audience.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but I think he's changed.
No, I'm not arguing. I'm not saying, I'm not invalidating what you're saying. I just think it's really fascinating to hear what you were seeing in person, because you're seeing so much more than we see, right?
And also you can't imagine. I wouldn't know. If Judy's still here, she'd know since she's an attorney. Certainly someone shouldn't be convicted because they loathe your lawyer. But they're headed that way.
It happens. Oh, it happens. No, that happens. You have to. Yeah. No.
I don't think anybody's enjoying any of that. The one that they should have up is the English accent guy. He does the best in the cross, in my opinion.
Yeah.
He does the more technical things. But with that one guy that invented all the zillion, he was a detective, and
let's get to that. So Dave 24, you're talking about Cy Ray, the retired detective, an entrepreneur, software developer. And I would call him the most qualified expert witness ever, because expert witnesses.
He wrote the code.
I mean, I'm not going to go into all of it. If you watch the trial, we can go into it more on our next, because we're going over quite long. But you're talking about Cy Ray. So day 24, we're almost to day 25 here. So Cy Ray, wow, what qualifications: criminal investigation methodology for geolocation and devices. But he takes all of the softwares and compares all of them. So it's not just one or the other. Some of the police like to use one particular software, which I find sus sometimes, because it's not always that accurate. We're finding that out in certain trials, such as Karen Reed. There's some question about certain softwares that the police typically use. But tell us about Cy Ray. What did you think about this guy? Because you brought him up.
First of all, wow, what a great witness and human being. The fact that he's a police officer detective, and it's his job for 10 years to interpret all this information from all the cell phones and devices people can have. And he's like, I think I'll be brilliant and just write code for this. And I think it'll be so good that now I'll retire and I'll start my own company. And it's going to be that good that I'm going to sell my company, even though I have to work for them for 2 years. And now he just does what he wants as an expert. And
Mm-hmm.
as a mom who's so proud of one of my sons who writes code and creates programs, I was all in on this guy. I'm all in on the ME stuff. I'm all in on the computer stuff. He
Mm-hmm.
was so believable to me. And notice that the defense barely said a word to him.
Yeah, they didn't have much on the
It's like
cross for him.
can't even.
Right. That's a good point. Very good point.
So
The
they
other,
were where they were. They took the routes that they did. He proved again that Baker got in that car in Target, and he was so cool how he said it's really hard to see, but notice the clothes he's wearing when he walks out of the gym. That's going to be important later. And he's like, you can't, it's hard to see, but notice the clothes the person's wearing that disappears into Monica's car in the
Mhm.
secret parking lot in
Oh,
Target
so
in the
dumb.
breezeway.
Ah, so dumb.
I think that'll sink her more than anything, that detail.
There's so much. There's so
But that
much.
one that she had to meet up with him right before and
Hmm.
then hook up to her security camera that she then ditched and
Well,
erased.
yes, and then there still has yet to be evidence that she actually gave him the IP address, which is really bad. Oh, because he would need
But
the
the door
IP
was
address.
open. The front door was open. That's not the door they kept open.
Right, but
Austin's
he would need the
testimony.
IP address to know when to turn on and off the security system. So you would
Who
need
would look
that.
on a tall cabinet? Baker's not even that tall of a guy. She told him everything. It
She also gave him
seems.
his IP, her IP address, which is really awful.
And the code
What would be
1111.
the reason to give
And
somebody
she
your
left the
IP
safe
address?
open. Remember they found a few
Yes,
drops of blood on the safe, but it was
yes,
closed? She
yes.
left
Some
it
of those
open.
things can be like, oh yeah, I love to save up, but she gave him his her IP address. Is a like that is something you have you ever given anybody your IP address?
They shared everything.
Oh, okay. All right, and then we get to day 24. We get to Corey Farrell, and then he's on day 25, and then the judge ghosted us again. So I have some final thoughts because we've gone way over. I don't want to. I love talking to you. I talk to you forever, but I just for the purposes of this live stream. One of the questions I have for our wrap up that I've left till the end is, what are your thoughts about this judge? We mentioned you just mentioned a few things. So
He comes off so much better in person than he does on video because
okay.
he is running his courtroom. He is very smart. He is completely adept at everything. He knows everything that's going on. And what I was most impressed of with him is when the two prosecutors argued against a ruling when he sustained something the last day, he went, I stand corrected.
I
And he changed his ruling.
oh yeah, that was that day 25. I remember
I
that when he
think
said
so.
that was a big blooper though. I was like, what is he doing? I mean, everybody knew he made a mistake. So if he didn't stand corrected, that would have been
He is so
okay.
aware of every juror. He really cares about them. This is a guy that's watching everything in the room. And I don't think he's how normally you think a judge is so pro prosecutor. I think he's been really fair in his rulings.
Okay. Okay.
But he is
Well,
angry right now at the defense. He is angry.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They have gone through so many things in sidebar and his chambers that they are not listening to,
And part of
meaning the
the thing
defense.
that part of the anger came from the defense, as we were just discussing, Attorney Levine going on and on with his cross of Christopher Austin. Don't you think that was like what kind of tipped the
Scales.
yes, thank you. Like, what's the word? Yes, don't you think? Because he really was starting to lose it with that. Don't you think? That was the
I think
worst of the
they
worst.
had so many sidebars about that. And then the jury has to be in the hallway. And then they had all these agreements ahead
Right,
of time.
because the defense was overstepping. So
Did
that's
you
what
see
tipped
when
the
the
scale,
judge,
right?
were we, I think we might have been there when Judge Cohen went like this, stop to
Yeah.
the defense.
Yeah.
He literally like a police
Stop it.
officer.
Yeah.
We were like, what? So
Yep.
yeah, he wasn't into that. He is, but you'll find now, I think, that other of the defense will show up because I think Levine has worn out his welcome with that, with everybody in that room.
Oh, I
The
think
court.
Levine's going to be back up, but I wish he wouldn't. But I don't. I think he'll be back up for
What is
sure.
it? What is the other attorney's name? Blair Burke. I don't think she's a big defense attorney who defended a lot of famous people too successfully.
The main attorney is Blair, the one with the southern
No, but
accent.
it's Levine's office though.
I thought it was her office.
It
But
seems like she hired 2 sets of attorneys, but I don't know. I should look into that.
well, they might have brought another office on,
Because
but
remember, they
her
said I
Blair
was
is
your
listed
at
as her attorney.
when Jessica with a G was on the stand. He said, "Remember, I was your mother's attorney when she got arrested." That was Levine
Yes, it was.
right away.
Yes.
Yes, and
So
we
many
suspect he's getting paid by the minute, and that's why he's so
So many
repetitive.
people want to know how much longer for this case to get to the jury. We haven't even seen the defense case in chief yet. We're still on the prosecution. What are your thoughts? We
Who was
don't have
just
a
on?
witness list. We
Remind
don't
me.
have the normal things that we normally would
Oh,
have.
believe me, I tried for a witness
We all
list, and
tried.
I even chased down a journalist the other day.
We all tried.
Like
What
literally
journalists
chased.
gonna have?
I said, "Excuse me,
No, they
lady
don't
that's
have
been."
it. They're not giving it out. So what do you know? When are we gonna get this to the defense, and when are we gonna get this to the jury?
I know
What do
nothing. What I
Okay.
suspect is it'll probably drag on for another week before the defense case in chief starts.
Yeah, it seems like there's
And
quite
then when Baker's on, he's going to be on. If you think Austin, I think prosecution's ready for him.
Yeah, well, they'll
And I'm
actually
not-
have some questions for him. It won't be like Levine, so let's not compare. Okay, so we have another friend who plans to attend for Baker's testimony. And also we have Mona's husband who has been
He
in
may or may
attendance.
not
We
come
have
back
some
with
more
me.
live streams that we'd like to do with both Carla and Marty and with Mona again, and also the for sure the verdict watch. So do stay tuned. We went a little bit longer, but I knew there was going to be so much that Mona and I haven't had a chance to talk a lot about this trial. So this was just a really great conversation. So hopefully we've given you like a taste of this trial. And if you're interested, stay tuned. So
If
any
somebody
final
hasn't seen it, just
thoughts?
watch one of those 48 hours for 5 minutes and then start
That's right.
watching the trial.
Yeah. Well, I did leave the link for the indictment, which is a good way to kind of get familiar with what's going on in the chat. So
I think the 2020 is called The Worst Cut or something in reference to the haircut. I don't even know.
So any final thoughts, Mona, that you want to that I didn't ask you about, that you just are dying to dish about before we head out?
I'm being hesitant about what I found out, which is a lot more than I'm saying, because people were very friendly and open. And if I go back in the morning, I believe people will be friendly and open, and I can maybe get a sneak peek at somebody's papers.
No,
while
don't
they're
reveal anything that's going to put anybody. Yeah, we
I
don't
don't
want.
even know. I don't even know what's allowed, because this is
Well, you can
I
ask. Yeah.
live in Los Angeles and I'm the public here and I'm paying for this trial and my taxes. So I don't feel badly about wanting to know where our money is being spent and why it's taking so long and why
Right.
I don't even I when I looked into it a little bit, I found that it was the defense that was delaying everything. So I didn't feel that badly that Monica Sementilli is sitting in lockup for
Mhm.
8 years
Right, it was by
because
her
it
choice.
was
Yeah.
her team that was
Mhm.
making all these motions.
Good.
And if
Yeah,
nobody has seen this, check it out because they
good to
put
know.
the
Yeah.
perps together and recorded a lot of stuff. So it's real interesting.
What I will say is, the clerk of court, they have on the Los Angeles court's website, unlike, I mean, every district is different, but they have nothing. Like they don't have the motion, they don't have anything for the public. And what the clerk of court said is they're thinking about doing that afterward. This is a notable trial, but they're thinking about publishing those things after the trial. So I don't know what their reasons are, but I mean, I would just suggest if you see something or if you have seen something, just say, is it okay if I share this?
No, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just
I
or
wanna I
not.
wanna say the way to find out when Baker's gonna be on, I don't do this, but you can go to this prison site because he's at Castaic, and that takes 2 days to get him to Los Angeles.
Right.
So if
But with the way
somebody
these,
watches that.
yes, yeah. But that's not a for sure thing because with the way that they're substituting witnesses and taking things out of order, he could
They
be
didn't
sitting there for
substitute their
days.
plan for Austin, though. I was
No, they
aware he
didn't,
was
but
gonna
they
be
didn't
on
for a
them.
couple people, but that doesn't, I'm just advising people don't, that's a great advice, but it's not like going to assure you
Not a
100%
definite.
that he's going
Nothing's
to,
definite with this trial except it will end, according to Judge Cohen, by Christmas 2026.
which I don't really find funny. So thank you.
I thought it
I
was
don't
kind of
find that, I don't find the judge even slightly funny. I know you said that he comes across better in person. I don't dislike him, but it's just like
it's
I find him
because
like
they don't
dad jokes, corny, silly.
he
He does have
I've
his
seen a lot of judges like that, but I guess watching him before court starts and the fact that he is demanding this feed start so abruptly and end so abruptly and show only certain things, he's not taking time to show who he is on camera. He does that off camera.
Yeah, I think that's pretty typical. So any other final thoughts before we wrap up? And Judy, sorry, we haven't mentioned Judy. Thanks for being here. And Judy is excited. She's reading more articles, and she did
Uh-oh, if we get
about
Judy, it's another conspiracy case, Judy.
it. There are
The
so
wife
many
caused it.
similarities to the Markel case, which we didn't get into tonight, but we can maybe get into that when we come on with Carla next, because it's
Yes.
kind of
I
crazy when you.
hope I hope Carla and I are sitting next to each other while Baker's on the stand for 5 days.
That's what she's hoping. I don't know about 5 days, but she definitely. And Queen Olive, hello. I know Mona said hi to you. I didn't have a chance. So, all right.
Whenever he starts, you're going to have time to get there because he'll be on again the next day and the
Yes,
next
she
day.
will. She will. She for sure will. All right. Well, you guys, again, thank you for watching live and for replaying. Mona, just hang with me for a sec and we'll see you in the
Okay.
green room. And good night, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I just want to say again, I appreciate you doing this. I have been dying to talk with you about this trial. And I had to do an outline, so hopefully it wasn't too condensed, but I know we had a lot to cover with 25 days of testimony so far. So with that, we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.
Bye bye. Have a good night. Have a good weekend, everyone.